My younger sister rescued a gravely wounded man and falsely claimed to be the legitimate daughter of the general's household. Half a year later, an imperial edict arrived, granting me a marriage to the third prince. Yet on our wedding night, the third prince lifted my veil only to turn away in fury. That same night, my sister left the general's residence and threw herself off a cliff. From that day onward, the third prince devoted himself to governance. Years later, upon ascending the throne, his first act was to annihilate the general's household, exile my entire clan, and cast me into the beast pits. The one I ever wished to marry was never you. You killed the one I cherished. My lingering spirit witnessed my younger sister's return. She had never jumped at all. She became the new emperor's moonlight, crowned empress, enjoying a lifetime of glory. So, it was all my younger sister's scheme. She used the third prince's hand to exact revenge upon the entire general's household. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of the imperial betrothal. The eunuch had just finished reading the betrothal decree when memories of my past life began flooding back. I distinctly recall the moment the third prince lifted my veil. The joy on his face vanished at a visible speed, as if he'd fallen from the heavens into a muddy pit. I cannot precisely describe the look in his eyes as he gazed at me. Shock, bewilderment, but more than anything, disgust and resentment. Before Yuning's marriage, I too had dreamed of a newlywed couple harmonizing like Qin and Se. But the third prince shattered it all. Without a word, he turned and left. I lay alone in the empty chamber, tossing and turning all night, utterly bewildered. Later, even after the third prince discovered that his concubine sister was the true savior of his life, the one he genuinely wished to marry, he still curried favor with the general's household for its power. He bound himself to them like grasshoppers on the same string. Thus, father had no choice but to support him wholeheartedly. He endured 3 years of humiliation. Once enthroned, he discarded his benefactor like a used donkey, exacting vengeance upon the entire general's household. That day, he threw me into the beast pit, forcing me to face 2 starving tigers alone. The one I ever wished to marry was never you. You killed the love of my life. And yes, your miscarriage earlier, I personally ordered it. You are unworthy to bear my blood. I died torn apart by tigers. Before my death, I understood everything. How utterly ridiculous. He and my half-sister, one falsely claimed to be the legitimate heir, usurping my identity, the other never even verified his beloved's true identity, directly petitioning for an imperial decree of marriage. Yet this entire farce was laid upon me and the general's household to bear the consequences. Absolutely preposterous. Even more laughable is that my resentment ran so deep. My spirit refused to dissipate after death. I uncovered a shocking secret. My half-sister never jumped off the cliff. She deliberately hid herself, fabricating the illusion of a broken heart. She used her own death to drive the third prince into a frenzied revenge against the general's mansion. All because she had always suspected her aunt was murdered. With no proof, only her narrow-minded conjecture, she dragged the entire clan to their graves. Miss Chu, receive the imperial decree. The eunuch smiled obsequiously. I forced myself to stand, my hand trembling slightly as I took the decree. This wasn't a decree of imperial marriage, it was a death warrant. I forced myself to calm down as quickly as possible. The third prince and my half-sister, this mad pair, should be bound together for eternity. And I would make them taste the agony of hell. I'd see how the third prince could survive the succession struggle without my father's and my unwavering support this time. My daughter, why are you so distracted? The third prince has an excellent reputation and should make a fine husband. Besides, this is an imperial decree, it cannot be refused. I hear the edict was even sought by the third prince himself. Seeing my dazed state, mother tried to comfort me. The third prince has spent his years training abroad. As for me, Due to my frail constitution in childhood and a prophecy foretelling a great calamity at 16, my family placed me in a manor near Fa Temple. Thus, the third prince has never seen me. This year, I turn 16. Mother, your daughter is well. The imperial decree cannot be altered, I shall marry him. But this time, I'll play by different rules. I had spies watch my half-sister's movements. Days later, a perfect opportunity presented itself. Under the pretense of buying jewelry, I had my half-sister accompany me out. She outwardly showed me great respect, addressing me as sister at every turn. Others would think she cherished me deeply. In my past life, I never could have imagined my half-sister would plot to take the lives of all 183 souls in the general's residence, burying her own aunt along with them. Today, most of the capital's powerful and influential have gathered at the water pavilion in the eastern part of the city. When the third prince and his entourage were moving about alone, I deliberately led my half-sister closer. The third prince, upon catching sight of her, was naturally delighted. He strolled over gracefully. Miss Chu, what a coincidence! My half-sister looked troubled, absent-mindedly twisting the handkerchief in her hands. I feigned surprise. You recognize me? And who might this gentleman be? The third prince froze. He looked at me, then scrutinized my half-sister beside me. Furrowing his brow, he asked me, You are Miss Chu? Then, who is she? I feigned confusion until the attendant beside the third prince introduced himself. This is His Royal Highness, the third prince. Which of you two ladies is the eldest Miss Chu? The atmosphere froze momentarily. I continued my act of ignorance. You are the third prince? And you know my second sister? The truth was about to spill out. The third prince, ever the politician, maintained his composure, though his gaze toward my younger sister grew peculiar. I found an excuse to speak with him privately. Your Highness, there is something I do not understand. I hope you might enlighten me. The third prince was quite courteous toward me now, unlike in my previous life. Please speak, I asked. I have never met your Highness. Nor does your Highness know me. Then, why did your Highness seek to marry me? I hear it was because of your Highness's achievements during the autumn hunt that the imperial decree of marriage was granted. I blinked innocently, my face innocent and childlike, as if I truly had been kept in the dark. In that previous life's farce, I was passive from start to finish. This time, I must make the third prince understand, marrying him is not my choice. He sought it himself, and it was caused by his beloved's lies. They are the ones who should pay the price for this mess. The general's mansion cannot reject an imperial decree. Doesn't the third prince adore his concubine-born sister? Then he should petition the emperor to annul the marriage. But, having just orchestrated the emperor's rescue at the hunting grounds to secure this marriage decree, how would the emperor view him if he immediately sought to annul it? Would he choose his beloved, or preserve his standing in the emperor's eyes? He would surely be torn, wouldn't he? At this moment, the third prince wore a refined, open smile, a flawless facade. He claimed it was because Miss Chu's grace and elegance had captivated him, driving him to anxiously seek her hand. Ha! Utter hypocrisy! In his past life, he loathed me for coming between him and his concubine-born sister. This time, I revealed the truth before their wedding. Yet he showed no intention of breaking the engagement. Upon returning to the mansion, my younger sister's eyes glistened faintly with tears. Yet she forced a smile, a sight that truly tugged at my heartstrings. The third prince watched me climb into the carriage, his gaze lingering repeatedly on my younger sister. I merely smiled without comment, knowing full well they would secretly conspire behind the scenes. As the carriage curtain fell, I turned to my half-sister and asked with a smile, "Why does my second sister seem so unhappy?" She offered a gentle smile. "How could that be? My elder sister is about to marry her perfect match. I can barely contain my joy for you. Me, oh? Since you care so deeply, why not marry the third prince yourself? Then we sisters would never have to part. It was merely a passing remark. Yet countless scheming thoughts flashed across my half-sister's face. How would she now use the third prince to exact revenge on the entire general's household? But I understood even more clearly, while she desired the general's household's downfall, she also craved the imperial court's splendor and wealth. If all went as expected, the third prince would certainly seek her out in secret. My half-sister gave a simple, innocent smile. Sister, you really know how to tease me. I caught the flush spreading across her earlobes. She was blushing. The third prince possessed striking good looks, radiating youthful vigor, and was born into the imperial bloodline. Naturally, she was drawn to him, true to my expectations. That evening, my trusted attendant came to inform me, Miss. The second young miss slipped out through the side gate, without a single maid accompanying her. How bold of her! Does she truly trust the third prince that much? We are both daughters of military families. I was frail as a child and only began martial training at 12. But my younger sister has always lived in pampered luxury. A delicate young lady with 5 or 6 maidservants attending her. Mother raised her as if she were the legitimate daughter. Even a stone would have warmed in such care. But after living through a lifetime, I know well that ingrates never learn gratitude. Stepping out under cover of night, I personally led men to follow them. From several paces away, I saw the third prince and my younger sister clinging to each other. She clung to him like a little bird, seemingly whimpering softly, while he tenderly kissed her hairline. It seemed their bond had deepened beyond mere courtesy long ago. Miss. Second miss. How could she seduce the third prince? Xiao Lu's indignation boiled over. I only laughed bitterly to myself. They met first, I was merely the latecomer. Xiao Lu looked at me with a mix of confusion and indignation. Thinking back to my past life, Xiao Lu had been poisoned blind and had her limbs severed by that bastard third prince while protecting me. I suppressed the pain in my heart and soothed her. Calm down. I have an important task for you to handle. I had someone fetch aphrodisiac incense and fertility potion, instructing Xiao Lu to keep watch on second sister. When third prince next invited her to a private rendezvous, she was to use both substances on her. Xiao Lu possessed excellent lightness skills and great strength. I trusted her to handle the task. Xiao Lu was puzzled. Why? Third prince is clearly the eldest lady's betrothed. I flicked her smooth forehead. Your eldest lady is a kind soul who loves doing good deeds, especially not breaking up lovers. That evening, after my half-sister returned, my confidant quickly reported, eldest lady. Second lady is in high spirits and brought back several precious jewels. During her bath tonight, she specifically ordered petals added to the water and declared she would begin applying pearl powder to her face starting tomorrow. I smiled. She intends to use her beauty to serve others. More precisely, she has altered her plan to feign death and now seeks to directly attach herself to the third prince. Very well. Half a month later, on the Qixi festival, the third prince again sent word to my younger sister in secret. The moment she left the estate, I sent a handwritten note to the crown prince. Though we had never met, I knew whom he feared most at present and understood his ambitions. I revealed a shocking secret, a revelation certain to draw him to the rendezvous, while the third prince and my half-sister met privately in the tea-house's parlor. The crown prince and I sipped tea in the adjoining room. I personally brewed a pot of Laojun mountain tea. Faint, suggestive sounds drifted from the adjacent private room. The crown prince paused, then regarded me with measured composure. Miss Chu, you've successfully piqued this sovereign's curiosity. In your letter, you claim knowledge of collusion between the third prince and the Prince of Jinan, a grave offense slandering a pillar of the court. You summoned this sovereign to meet, surely not merely to eavesdrop? How can an unmarried maiden be so unconcerned? Unconcerned indeed. I have tasted the agony of being torn apart by beasts. Though still alive, my mind was utterly lucid, feeling their fangs shatter my bones, watching helplessly as I perished in their jaws. My gaze grew icy. Yet I smiled as I replied, "The pair of wild mandarin ducks next door, that is the third prince and my younger half-sister." The crown prince visibly startled. The amusement deepened in his smile. "But..." Third prince stood relentlessly to win your hand. His expression shifted abruptly. "I see. Third prince covets your younger sister, marrying you was merely a ploy." I replied, "Father holds military power. Does your highness not fear that after third prince marries me, he will become even more formidable?" The crown prince's long-fingered hand drummed on the tabletop. His eyes narrowed, a fleeting chill flashing within. "Miss Chu seems reluctant to marry the third prince. Why not speak plainly? What truly brings you here today?" The groundwork was laid. I cut to the chase. I wish to serve as the crown prince's spy, infiltrating the third prince's inner circle. The crown prince's sword-like brows shot upward, his eyes brimming with heightened interest. "What do you stand to gain?" I answered without hesitation, "I seek control over third prince's life and death, and his maternal clan. In my past life, after third prince exiled my entire clan, he sent assassins to slaughter us mid-journey, uprooting us completely. I must repay him in full." The crown prince fell silent for a moment. "Miss Chu, you are intriguing and bold. But why should I trust you?" I refilled his tea. "In truth, your highness has already uncovered clues yourself, haven't you? You know my claims aren't baseless. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to this meeting today." The commotion in the adjoining room grew louder. The aphrodisiac incense was taking effect. The crown prince shifted uncomfortably, his gaze evasive. "Very well. Pleased to cooperate." We drank half a cup of tea each, substituting it for wine. The next day, the third prince sent a generous delivery of fresh melons and fruits. Others assumed his thoughtfulness stemmed from affection for me. In truth, he wanted his younger sister to enjoy the sweet fruits, so he ensured the entire general's mansion benefited. Since last night, my younger sister had been unwell, lying in bed for half the day before rising. As always, she was gentle and graceful, accompanying me as usual for meals and tea. I teased her deliberately. "Second sister, your complexion has been splendid these past few days. Look at that skin, pale yet rosy, more radiant than peonies." She giggled coyly, but I caught the fleeting chill in her eyes. She hid it so deeply that in my past life, I never could have imagined this younger sister, always treated kindly at home, would be orchestrating such a grand scheme. Over the next 2 months, I appeared to be busily preparing for the marriage. In truth, I secretly had the guards investigate numerous matters. In my past life, after marrying into the third prince's household, though he never truly cherished me, I inadvertently uncovered several state secrets. Good news also arrived from my half-sister. She was pregnant. The third prince had secretly assigned guards to protect her, meaning he surely knew her whereabouts. She understood this well herself. She deliberately wore a veil when going out and procured an abortion potion. This news reached the third prince's ears at lightning speed. At present, my half-sister remains the apple of his eye. How could he allow their child to perish? Though her initial scheme was to use him as a tool, she must also covet power and privilege. With the third prince showing such devotion, her heart would surely stir. Thus, she would force him to intervene, to save her child and grant her legitimacy. Miss. The second miss is already brewing the abortion potion. Humph. She certainly knows how to put on a show. Before long, a servant reported, "Miss, the third prince has suddenly arrived. He looks urgent and has come straight to the rear courtyard. Time to watch the show." Father, being a military commander, was always careless and rough. Mother, being overly kind-hearted, was easily deceived by my younger sister. So I personally led people to investigate. When I arrived, my half-sister wept like a pear blossom in rain, while the third prince held her shoulders, gazing at her with deep affection. Half-sister, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have kept this child. Your Highness, knowing you cherish me leaves me with no regrets. Third prince, what nonsense are you spouting? If I can't even protect the woman I love, what kind of man am I? I want both you and the child. Wow. Truly heartrending. I almost wanted to applaud them. Yes. They were truly meant for each other. But what they absolutely should not have done was drag me and the general's household into this mess. My half-sister threw herself into the third prince's arms, weeping bitterly. Men are no match for beauty's charms. The third prince's true feelings were laid bare. If blame must be placed, blame me for mistaking his identity, for seeking to marry the wrong person. I stepped forward at the perfect moment, feigning shock. So that's how it is. I was the unnecessary one? Clutching my chest, I played out a symphony of expressions: shock, hurt, sorrow, before quickly dissolving into a resigned smile. The third prince and the younger sister froze, both turning to look at me. I didn't give them a chance to explain. Since your highness and second sister are mutually devoted, and since the one your highness sought to marry was meant to be second sister, it would be wrong of me to stand between you. I will gladly step aside. The third prince frowned slightly. The imperial decree for the marriage cannot be altered. At this, a flicker of surprise crossed my half-sister's face. I sneered inwardly, continuing my act. If the marriage cannot be altered, then we must wait until the time is ripe to seek a divorce. But I just heard that second sister is with child. What are we to do now? Seeing that I wasn't angry, but instead wholeheartedly considering their situation, the third prince's gaze toward me took on a different meaning. Realizing concealment was futile, the third prince sought out father and mother. With the younger sister already pregnant and the third prince insisting on keeping the child, the only solution was for both sisters to marry into the same household. Father flew into a rage. Absurd! What does His Royal Highness take the daughters of the Chu family to be? Mother was equally heartbroken. The second daughter has always been so sensible and well-behaved. How could she be pregnant? It was clear both my father and mother were heartbroken over their two daughters. Alas! Some are born cold-blooded, wallowing only in the hatred they've conjured in their own minds. Obsessive and selfish. The third prince humbled himself, kneeling before my father. General Chu, this is all my doing. I will take full responsibility. He appeared upright and noble, with no other choice. My parents reluctantly agreed. But privately, I revealed the mix-up in the arranged marriage to the two elders. Father, having navigated the bureaucracy for years, quickly discerned the subtleties. Mistaken identity? But why did your second sister lie about being the legitimate eldest daughter? And why did the third prince, knowing he'd sought the wrong bride, persist in the error? Clearly, he wanted both. He wants both his beloved and my status as the legitimate daughter. Mother's face darkened. Second daughter. She's that kind of person. I wiped away non-existent tears from my eyes and said I'd been having the same dream lately. In the dream, my concubine-born sister, driven by vengeance for her mother, schemed to seduce the third prince. She then faked her own death to escape, using him to exact revenge on the general's household. Hearing this, mother found it unbelievable. Revenge? What for? Her aunt had taken medicinal decoctions throughout her pregnancy to conceive a son, poisoning the fetus. During childbirth, the physician saved only the child. Her aunt poisoned herself. Whom could she blame? I reassured mother, telling her not to worry. It was merely a dream, it might not come true. Mother, please do not dwell on it. At this point, arguing with my half-sister held no meaning. The wounds from my past life ran too deep, even the thickest blood ties could not bridge the divide. This lifetime, my half-sister would pay the price. The wedding day arrived swiftly. I entered the mansion with the honors befitting a legitimate wife. My half-sister, however, was carried into the prince's residence through a side gate in a small sedan chair. Even if the third prince cared for her, he must consider his reputation. But how could I let him have his way? I had already ordered the news to be spread. Within days, the entire capital would know the third prince had married 2 daughters of the Chu family, one as his wife, the other as his concubine. And the concubine was already more than 2 months pregnant. The third prince had always been renowned for his benevolence and magnanimity. I was eager to see how magnanimous he could be now. That evening, when the third prince came to the bridal chamber, I had already removed my heavy hairpin. My jet-black hair cascaded down, and I wore only a crimson gauze nightgown. His gaze faltered, the astonishment in his eyes unmistakable. I feigned unaware of my own beauty. Why have you come to me tonight, Your Highness? Others may not know, but you and I both understand that second sister is the one you truly love. Our marriage is merely a pretense. After 1 year, I shall request a divorce. The laws of this dynasty forbid divorce within the first year of marriage. An imperial marriage cannot be refused. But it doesn't forbid dissolution. The third prince pressed his lips together, his brow furrowing slightly with displeasure. Yet tonight is our wedding night. If I leave now, gossip will inevitably follow. How laughable! In his previous life, why didn't he realize that leaving me alone in the bridal chamber would invite gossip? What? This lifetime, having gained his beloved, has he grown particularly considerate toward me? I stepped forward and nudged the third prince's arm. Second sister is with child and needs your care. You should go to her. The third prince flashed a smile and bowed his hand. Chu Muyao, you've truly impressed me. Thank you for your magnanimity. The third prince left the bridal chamber and went to his concubine sister. Before long, Xiao Lu slipped quietly into the bridal chamber. Giggling, Miss. I added an emetic to second sister's meal. The third prince initially tried to embrace her, but second sister vomited all over him. He stormed off with a dark expression. I stroked my temples before the mirror, letting out a bitter laugh. In my past life, the third prince declared that only my half-sister remained untouched by worldly concerns, while all other women were mere commoners. Would he still hold that belief after seeing her disarray today? Ultimately, the third prince spent his wedding night in the study. The next day, my half-sister and I accompanied him to the palace to present tea to the emperor. News of her pregnancy had already spread. The emperor, with his keen senses, was naturally aware. He did not greet the third prince with a kind expression. After all, the third prince had sought my hand in marriage, yet secretly married my younger sister instead. Even a fool could see he coveted the military power of the general's household. The emperor began to fear the third prince, and consort Rome, as the third prince's mother, surely hated my younger sister. Had it not been for my younger sister, the third prince would not have faced the emperor's cold gaze during the tea ceremony. The emperor murmured deeply, "Third son, I truly underestimated you before." The third prince's heart lurched, and he dared not utter a word. His concubine's pregnancy was an undeniable fact. A single pulse check by the imperial physician would confirm it. He could neither deny nor evade the truth. The crown prince snorted derisively. "Third brother, congratulations on your double blessing." The third prince steadied his emotions, maintaining outward composure. He showed no sign of distress despite the swirling rumors. The crown prince raised his cup again, gesturing to me. I nodded in understanding. After the tea ceremony, Consort Rong summoned me and my half-sister for a private conversation. She bestowed upon me 2 sets of pure gold headdresses, yet granted my younger sister only a single jade hairpin. The contrast was stark. My younger sister paled visibly on the spot. She had believed she could gain status through her son, but in truth, the imperial family lacked nothing more than offspring. Consort Rong, eager to see the third prince rise to power, naturally wished to clear any obstacles from his path. Consort Rong introduced a woman to me, Lady Chu. Wu Shuang is the legitimate daughter of the Lu family, a distant niece of mine, and the third prince's cousin. She has been in the capital for some time and will reside temporarily in the prince's mansion. As the mistress of the mansion, you must look after her well. Reside temporarily in the mansion. Consort Rong's intentions were now crystal clear. She intended to foist Lu Wushuang upon the third prince. I acquiesced. Yes, mother, your daughter understands. My half-sister's expression darkened further. On the journey back to the mansion, the 4 of us were crammed into a single carriage. My half-sister was on the verge of tears. The third prince was overwhelmed. He should have been overjoyed to marry his beloved. Yet inexplicably, he felt no desire to comfort her. Only a deep weariness. Neglected and unconsoled for the grievances she endured in the palace. The younger sister simply turned cold. How laughable, she was now in a cold war with the third prince. She truly placed herself on an overly high pedestal. In her previous life, she had faked her death, becoming something the third prince could never possess. That was precisely what made him treasure her so deeply. But now, she was right before him, carrying his child. With no sense of urgency or scarcity, why would he feel the agony of unrequited love? People always take for granted what comes easily. Upon returning to the mansion, I went to the study to see the third prince. Your Highness, Cousin Lu has been settled in the Lotus Courtyard. Mother's suggestion is that, as you are now in the prime of your youth, and second sister is with child and unable to attend to you, if you find Cousin Lu to your liking, you may take her into your chambers. Seeing my frankness, the third prince was momentarily speechless before snorting with a mocking laugh. Your Highness, you are indeed magnanimous. I smiled faintly. Your Highness, you sought to marry the wrong person. Our divorce is inevitable. Of course I am magnanimous. The third prince choked. You. He seemed deeply displeased by my words. Lu Wushuang was resourceful. The moment she entered the estate, she began preparing soups and stews for the third prince. Yet, the third prince still harbored thoughts of his true love. In the end, he carried a jewelry box to his half-sister's quarters. The third prince was clever and naturally noticed Consort Rong's differential treatment. Knowing his half-sister had suffered wrongs, he intended to appease her with a box of jewelry. The third prince stayed the night. Little Lu eavesdropped by the wall that night and reported back to me, Miss. Though the second miss is pregnant, she still uses other methods. Xiao Lu's face flushed crimson, while I merely smiled faintly. My half-sister was far too naive. She couldn't possibly believe such tactics would truly bind the third prince. He was still young, and her role as his savior had briefly ensnared him. But matters of the heart, once the fervor of passion fades, can never return to their former intensity. On the day of my return visit, father and mother wore grim expressions. However, I had mentioned the nightmare more than once. Now, they could no longer heed the outside rumors. They could only wait and see, taking things one step at a time. Father, a martial general, began venting his displeasure after 3 rounds of wine. Your Highness, this affair of yours is utterly disgraceful. You mistook one person for another, sought to marry the wrong one, and then secretly consorted with Chu Mian? You've defiled both my daughters. The third prince immediately pleaded for forgiveness. Father, of course, could do nothing to him. Chu Mion's eyes instantly filled with tears, and she began to sob. Father played the stern role, so I stepped in to be the softer voice. Father, now that things have come to this, there's no better solution. The prince and second sister are truly meant for each other. It's just fate playing tricks. Your daughter has already discussed it with the prince. We'll divorce in a year. Mother sighed. After the divorce, how will you ever marry again? I deliberately acted coy before my parents. Your daughter will never marry. I'll stay by your sides for the rest of my life. Mother looked even more helpless. The third prince watched me the entire time, his gaze veiled with a hint of guilt. On the way back to the prince's residence, my half-sister cast pitiful glances at the third prince, but he simply closed his eyes and pretended to sleep. She didn't understand, love that was too direct and clingy could suffocate a person. The more she tried to hold on, the faster the third prince would find it unbearable. After the matron from Consort Rong's quarters visited the mansion, Lu Wushuang seemed to gain insight. She ceased her frequent ginseng soup deliveries, instead dancing beneath the moonlight or playing ancient melodies. Half a month later, Lu Wushuang finally succeeded in leading the third prince to the bedroom. Xiao Lu returned with news that girl's getting bolder by the day. The more she sees him, the less shy she gets. Miss, guess what? Tonight, that Lu cousin danced in sheer gauze, and the third prince was completely mesmerized. Lu Wushuang was personally selected by Consort Rong, specifically for the third prince. When placing someone beside her son, she naturally chose the finest. Lu Wushuang's beauty could only be described as delicate, yet her figure was gracefully curvaceous. The very next day, Lu Wushuang was elevated to the status of a secondary wife, now equal to my half-sister. As the third prince held the rank of prince, his marriage to a secondary wife required the emperor's approval. Thus, my half-sister and Lu Wushuang could only serve as concubines for the time being. My half-sister began to grow anxious, even using her pregnancy to vie for favor. I watched the tigers fight from across the river, observing the unfolding drama. That night, a mysterious guest arrived at the prince's mansion. Xiao Lu and I hid on the roof of the study to eavesdrop. Lifting the tiles, I recognized the assistant minister of works. The third prince discussed the construction of disaster-stricken area embankments with him. If memory serves, in my past life, the third prince seized this opportunity to embezzle funds on a massive scale, cutting corners on the dam construction. Yet the following year, torrential rains struck, causing the dam to collapse and leaving tens of thousands of people homeless. The third prince, however, stubbornly blamed the Ministry of Works, even going so far as to silence witnesses by executing them. Without concrete evidence in hand, I must rely on the Crown Prince to investigate thoroughly. As soon as the Vice Minister of Works departed, the third prince sighed to his confidant. Women and petty men are the hardest to deal with in this world. These past days have been truly vexing. The confidant paused thoughtfully. Your Highness, are you referring to the jealousy within the inner quarters? I find the princess consort to be quite proper and gracious. The third prince snorted derisively, shaking his head. The princess consort doesn't care about me. But why shouldn't she care? I was utterly speechless. Where does this man get his confidence? Even in my previous life, when I sensed his motives for marrying me were impure, I didn't dwell on it for long. It was just unfortunate that the general's mansion and the third prince were so deeply intertwined, leaving me bound hand and foot. Now, however, I've formed an alliance with the crown prince. At least I can fight back. The next day, I found an opportunity to go out and met with the crown prince again. He arrived promptly. I kept my words concise, Your Highness. The Assistant Minister of Works is problematic, particularly regarding the dam repairs. If you send someone to monitor him, they will surely uncover something. The Crown Prince's attitude was vastly improved from last time. He poured me tea himself. Miss Chu, I have indeed discovered clues linking the third prince to the Prince of Jinnan's estate. It seems your words were not empty. I trust you. But could it be that you seek to destroy third brother merely because of a broken heart? I shook my head. No. I simply believe he is unworthy of the dragon throne. As a daughter of the Chu family, how could I be consumed by petty romantic entanglements? The crown prince studied my eyes. Do you believe I am capable? I nodded. Your Highness possesses both courage and wisdom, and you are a man of righteousness. You will undoubtedly become a great emperor. In my past life, the crown prince was forced to flee the capital to Jiangbei. There, supported by tens of thousands, he established a new dynasty. His reforms benefited the people. Moreover, in my past life, it was he who recovered my father's body and later, from the new dynasty in Jiangbei, cleared the Chu family's name. The crown prince smiled, his expression enigmatic. The tales of stealing a brother's wife that circulate in the streets stir my blood. I too once considered emulating such deeds. Yet, after hearing Miss Chu's words today, I dare not act rashly toward you. I replied frankly, between a man and a woman, it need not always be a romantic affair. The bond between ruler and subject can be equally beneficial. The crown prince chewed on the words bond between ruler and subject. The Empress Dowager's birthday was approaching. My younger sister bears the child, with several princes yet unmarried. This child, if born, would be the eldest imperial grandson. Thus, the Empress Dowager has mentioned it several times before Consort Rong. Consort Rong believes the Empress Dowager cherishes this child. Therefore, Consort Rong specifically instructed that my younger sister also enter the palace to celebrate the Empress Dowager's birthday. A plan suddenly formed in my mind, and I instructed Xiao Tao to carry it out. Xiao Tao bribed a servant in the prince's residence to deliberately let slip in front of the younger sister that the Empress Dowager favored peach-pink robes. True to her ambition, she had peach-pink garments prepared that very day. Little did she know that peach-pink was the color the Empress Dowager detested most. The Empress Dowager's fiercest rival in the harem of old adored wearing peach-pink. The late emperor was utterly enamored with Consort Wan. Had her son survived, this empire might well have fallen into another's hands. When Xiao Tao returned, she murmured, "Young miss." This servant overheard second young miss cursing you. She even said the position of principal consort should have been hers. I never imagined second young miss despised you so much in private. I closed the military treatise and prepared ink and brush. I too would prepare a birthday gift for the Empress Dowager. The title of third prince's consort? I find it beneath me. Days later, the third prince brought me and my younger sister into the palace. My younger sister clung to him the entire time, as if afraid I wouldn't notice. I kept my head down, reading, undisturbed. The third prince, however, sought conversation. What are you reading? My study has quite a collection. If you're interested, you may borrow a few. Maintaining my reading posture without lifting my gaze, I replied, "Thank you, Your Highness. I shall visit your study in a few days to browse." His study, a sacred space, and he actually invited me inside. Humph. The third prince's attitude toward me in these 2 lifetimes couldn't be more different. My half-sister interjected, "Your Highness, do you think my attire today is appropriate?" The third prince paused briefly before replying, "It looks good." With that single word, he said nothing more. My half-sister's spirits visibly sank again. I couldn't help but sneer coldly. This delicate flower had already been plucked by the third prince, leaving her with little allure remaining. Upon arriving at the palace, several princes took turns presenting gifts. When it was the third prince's family's turn, the Empress Dowager's gaze fell upon my half-sister, and her expression instantly turned cold. Consort Rome also paled, glaring angrily at my half-sister. My half-sister's body trembled slightly, unsure of what had happened. At that moment, I curtsied and said, "Grandmother, your granddaughter-in-law has painted a picture of a white crane on Mount Tai, wishing you eternal health and longevity." The Empress Dowager's expression finally softened. When the scroll was unfurled, the Empress Dowager was overjoyed. "This bears the distinct style of Master Xianqing. Did you paint this yourself?" I smiled faintly. "Grandmother, Master Xianqing is indeed my revered teacher." The Empress Dowager was delighted and bestowed a jade rui scepter as a reward. Having restored the prince's mansion's honor, Consort Rong and the third prince's expressions finally softened. After the longevity banquet concluded, Consort Rong summoned me, the third prince, and my younger half-sister. Consort Rong showed her no courtesy whatsoever. After all, she was born of a concubine, a lowly creature unfit for the court. "You have offended the Empress Dowager today. Were it not for your pregnancy, I would not have spared you." My half-sister turned ashen, finally grasping the gravity of her situation. Yet she believed Lu Wushuang had set her up, after all. Only Lu Wushuang had stayed in the palace for a brief period and could have known the Empress Dowager's taboos beforehand. The younger sister frantically protested. "No. Someone set me up. I didn't mean to." Consort Rong frowned, shot the third prince a sharp glance, and ordered the girl led away. "Teach her proper etiquette." I lowered my gaze, hiding the flicker of surprise in my eyes. The general's household had treated my younger sister well. Her lack of manners was no fault of our parents. On the way back to the mansion, my half-sister tried to explain further, but the third prince had already grown impatient. "Enough. When you have nothing better to do, follow your elder sister and read more books." My half-sister believed she held a special place in the third prince's heart. Unable to bear his rebuke, she retorted, "Your Highness, what do you mean? Do you also despise me for being of lesser birth?" The third prince, flustered, blurted out, "Wasn't it you who falsely claimed to be the legitimate daughter of the general's household?" The younger sister fell silent. They locked eyes, their gazes sharp and confrontational. Only then did I step in to play the good cop. "Your Highness, second sister, let's discuss this properly back at the residence." The third prince appeared magnanimous on the surface. He prized appearances above all. It was unthinkable for him to quarrel with his half-sister. Inevitably, they fell into another Cold War. The half-sister returned to her courtyard and burned all her peach-pink gowns. She was utterly convinced Lu Wushuang was persecuting her. Thus, she formally declared war on Lu Wushuang. The inner quarters of the prince's mansion grew tumultuous. The third prince, lacking a concubine and in the prime of his youth, spent the next fortnight visiting Lu Wushuang's quarters. Naturally, his actions were largely driven by a desire to spite his younger sister. When a man begins to punish a woman through sulking, his affection has already dwindled considerably. Because he doesn't love her enough, he can bring himself to deliberately cause her pain. That day, Xiao Lu rushed back, gasping, "Miss, second miss has bled." I was not surprised. Given my half-sister's nature, she would inevitably engage in open and covert struggles with Lu Wushuang. When I arrived with attendants, my half-sister was screaming in agony as basin after basin of bloody water was carried out of the room. Lu Wushuang knelt outside, utterly unafraid. As a woman placed there by Consort Rong, the third prince could not dispose of her at will. Inside, the third prince clasped my half-sister's hand. The man finally showed emotion. "Mian Mian, we will have other children." My half-sister gnashed her teeth. "Kill her, Your Highness. Kill that bitch. She offended me and caused me to lose my child." My half-sister hurled curses. The third prince's frown deepened. He could have many children in the future, but he couldn't offend his mother, the imperial consort. This farce soon concluded, with Lu Wushuang merely confined to her quarters for a month. The younger sister, naturally, was far from satisfied, seizing every opportunity to cause trouble. Whenever her emotions flared, she would bring up the debt of saving his life. "Your Highness, have you forgotten? It was I who saved you. If not for me, would you even be alive today?" At first, the third prince would placate her, but as it happened more often, it became a demand for repayment of a favor. He grew weary of it and stopped engaging. One evening, the third prince came to my courtyard drunk, pouring out his sorrows. He spoke of the child he never had and how things between him and his half-sister could never be mended. My smile didn't reach my eyes. In my past life, I too had a child. One the third prince personally poisoned and sent away. This lifetime, I won't give him the chance to be a father. He won't live to see that day either. Your Highness, you've had too much to drink. The third prince wouldn't relent, suddenly grasping my hand. Chu Muyao, if only I had met you first. I pulled my hand away. Your Highness, the one in your heart is second sister. I would never take what belongs to another. Before our wedding, I made it clear, when the time comes, we shall part ways. In my heart, your Highness is merely my sister's husband. The third prince murmured the words again. Sister's husband? Merely her husband. He reached for my hand once more, only to be brushed aside by Xiao Lu. The third prince staggered back 2 steps. I dismissed him, Your Highness. It's getting late. You should return. The third prince wasn't truly drunk, he'd come today to test me deliberately. Lu Wushuang was Consort Rong's man. He loathed being watched. In his heart, his half-sister was no longer the pure moonlight. He wanted to be a true husband and wife with me. At that moment, a clear possessiveness and unwillingness surged in the third prince's eyes. But his attitude softened. Don't be angry. I'll leave. The next day, the third prince sent a batch of new fabrics. He was deliberately showing goodwill. Meanwhile, movement finally came from the crown prince's side. The assistant minister of works had been cutting corners in the river embankment construction, with irrefutable evidence. The assistant minister belonged to Consort Rong's maternal clan. His downfall could potentially implicate the third prince. These past few days, the third prince began leaving early and returning late, no longer setting foot in the inner quarters. My younger sister grew restless. After her postpartum confinement ended, she came to me in distress. Her eyes reddened, pleading, "Sister, what should I do? My poor child was harmed by that vile Lu Wushuang before it was even born. Sister, you must help me. We sisters should support each other." Xiao Lu rolled her eyes and muttered. Does she even know we're blood sisters? When you impersonated the eldest lady, did you forget our sisterly bond? You and the third prince are meant for each other, why drag the eldest lady into this? My younger sister looked embarrassed and could only weep. This was her usual tactic. I motioned for Xiao Lu to be quiet. I feigned comfort to my younger sister. Second sister, His Highness truly cares for you. Every couple has their disagreements. Lu Wushuang is always in his presence, you must be more proactive. The third prince was already overwhelmed. Approaching him now would only invite trouble. That very night, the younger sister presented the ginseng soup to the third prince. Her attempts to curry favor backfired spectacularly, the soup spilled, staining his documents. The third prince erupted in fury. Enough! Why can't you just spare me the trouble? The younger sister was bewildered. Me? Troublesome? Have you grown tired of me now? The third prince drew a deep breath. His ambitions were too grand to be hindered by a mere woman. Yes. Are you satisfied? May I leave now? The younger sister covered her mouth and fled the study. Watching this from the rooftop, I let out a cold laugh. The third prince, now splattered with ginseng soup, headed to his chambers to change. Seizing the moment, I slipped into the study, scanning the room and discovering the secret chamber's mechanism. However, I didn't enter immediately. Sounds came from outside, and the third prince soon returned. I swiftly vanished into the night through a window. Over the next few days, the third prince was consumed by state affairs, spending several nights in his study. I couldn't find a suitable opportunity to sneak back in. Until this day, when Lu Wushuang was diagnosed as pregnant, I bribed the physician to falsely claim Lu Wushuang carried a male heir. As the principal wife, I bestowed generous gifts upon her. Consort Rome from the palace also sent numerous presents. The third prince, about to become a father again, saw his mood slightly improve. It seemed the entire household was preparing for Lu Wushuang's child. Naturally, my younger sister could not bear this and actually took revenge on Lu Wushuang. She pushed Lu Wushuang into the water, then followed her into the lotus pond, kicking Lu Wushuang's abdomen violently underwater. When both were pulled ashore, Lu Wushuang bled profusely and miscarried on the spot. This incident once again threw the prince's residence into utter chaos. While the third prince went to handle the situation, I finally had the chance to sneak into the study. I successfully entered the secret chamber and found several letters exchanged between the third prince and the Prince of Jinan, along with an account book detailing military equipment purchases. After hiding the account book, I made a brief, symbolic appearance. Lu Wushuang declared she would demand justice from Consort Rome. After my half-sister moved out of the general's residence this time, the third prince intended to severely punish her. Yet she retorted, "Though I am a concubine's daughter in the general's household, my father and mother treated me as their legitimate child. Even if your highness disregards past affection, must you not consider the general's family honor? Besides, I merely returned the favor. She harmed my child, why should I not harm her?" The third prince closed his eyes, his face etched with disappointment. Watching this pair of loving lovebirds from my past life, I nearly burst out laughing. In my previous life, after the third prince registered our marriage, he made my half-sister his empress and vowed to be with her for a lifetime. His attitude in these two lives was worlds apart. The third prince turned to me, his eyes filled with complex emotions. I merely smiled. "These matters within the inner quarters, Your Highness, are yours to decide. As for second sister, father and mother have already told me that the general's household has shown her utmost kindness and will no longer concern itself with her." My half-sister grew frantic. "Sister, how can you speak like this? I am also father and mother's child." I offered a faint smile. "Second sister, do you truly believe that?" Her face instantly drained of color, panic evident. "Sister, why say such things? I am father and mother's child too." I said no more. After all, I never considered myself part of the royal household. I had handed over all authority to the third prince. The third prince was swamped with affairs and had no time to watch over me. So I went out to meet the crown prince. I handed him the letter and ledger. "I hear today is your highness's birthday. I hope you'll like this birthday gift." The Prince of Jinan's mansion had always been a thorn in the emperor's side. If the emperor discovered the third prince colluding with the Prince of Jinan, no matter how much he favored the son, he would never spare him. The crown prince glanced through the documents, his eyes flashing with admiration. "Miss Chu, daughter of a military family, truly lives up to her reputation. Even my most trusted confidants cannot match your efficiency." After a brief conversation, I took my leave. The crown prince called after me. "Miss Chu, I recently declined the Empress Dowager's choice for crown princess. What do you think? Might you be interested?" I had heard rumors of this matter. The woman the crown prince rejected was the daughter of the Minister of Rights. "What a pity." I smiled. "Your Highness, The bond between sovereign and subject is sufficient. The crown prince made no further demands, merely shrugging helplessly. Upon returning to the prince's residence, I learned my half-sister had been punished with 20 strokes of the cane. Consort Roan had specifically dispatched a matron from the palace to hint that the third prince should abandon his half-sister. The third prince came to see me because of this. Our mother can no longer tolerate Chumian. Yet she is your sister. This puts me in a difficult position. How laughable! Wasn't he the one who insisted on marrying my half-sister? I replied indifferently. Your Highness, though I am your nominal wife, I will depart sooner or later. Your domestic affairs truly concern me not. Moreover, after your concubine sister secretly eloped with you, the general's mansion has already abandoned her. How she is dealt with is entirely up to your Highness. The third prince suddenly lost control. Chu Muyao, you still think of divorce? But I was the one who sought to marry you. I corrected him. Has your Highness forgotten? You mistakenly treated your concubine sister as your legitimate daughter. The one you always sought to marry was her. The third prince had no words, no defense. He opened his mouth, his Adam's apple rolling. If I say I no longer cherish Chumian, would you accept me? I tilted my head slightly, relishing the third prince's desperate, unattainable expression. No. The third prince choked. Imperial marriages aren't something you can dissolve simply by declaring a divorce. Chu Muyao, one day, you will understand my feelings. His feelings? Suppressing a wave of nausea, I watched him leave. Attendant! Go inform father. Let him prepare in advance. A cornered dog will leap over a wall. Once the third prince senses the tide has turned against him, he will surely join forces with the Prince of Jinnan's mansion to strike back. My younger sister's high fever won't break. She wishes to see the third prince. The third prince was still seething with anger and paid no heed to her request for an audience. After that, my younger sister sent word to me again. The messenger was one of her bridal attendants, also from the general's mansion, so she still addressed me as young miss. Miss. The attendant said, second sister claims she remembers everything. She requests your presence. I froze, then understood. What? She reincarnated too? This piqued my interest. So I went. When I saw my half-sister, she lay limp on the bed, utterly drained. She lifted her head to look at me, her face as pale as paper. I caught sight of the bloodstain seeping from her back and approached slowly. Second sister. What brings you to see me? Her gaze turned venomous. You've returned too, haven't you? Otherwise, how could this life differ from the last? I was meant to be the most honored woman in the world. You ruined me. She certainly knows how to blame others. She blamed the general's mansion for killing her mother, blamed Lu Wushuang for harming her child, and now blames me for destroying her glory and fortune. I smiled. Second sister. Everything in this world has its cause and effect. You sowed evil seeds, so you reap evil consequences. If you hadn't coveted wealth and power, and had feigned death to escape once more, perhaps the outcome would have been different. My half-sister lost control, nearly roaring. I'll tell His Highness. You'll be next on his list. I scoffed. He can barely save himself. He won't have time for you. Panic flooded my half-sister's eyes. No. That can't be. His Highness and I are meant to be together. You're all just stepping stones. My face turned completely cold. Let me tell you the truth. Your aunt took medicine to conceive a son, which ruined her health. Tell me, who caused her death? After giving birth to me, Mother was weakened and could bear no more children. That's why she elevated a maid to become a concubine. Once that concubine conceived, she became obsessed with gaining status through her child and heeded folk remedies for conception. My half-sister shook her head. No. That's just hearsay. My aunt was clearly poisoned. I dug up her grave and saw her bones were completely blackened. I sneered coldly. Of course they were blackened. She took those medicines from the moment she conceived you. How could she not be poisoned? The physician who prescribed them is still alive and could testify. But it doesn't matter anymore. You bear the blood feud of the entire general's mansion. I won't let you off. My half-sister grew frantic. But why are you called Chu Muyao while I'm called Chu Mian? Your name is so elegant. But what about mine? I was astonished by her petty mind. I told her the truth. You were born barely alive, bleeding like a lamb. That's why father named you Mian, hoping you'd be easy to raise. You wouldn't really think the general's household didn't value you just because of a name, would you? My half-sister froze, terror spreading across her face. She finally began to understand. All this stemmed from her own narrow-mindedness. But this realization came too late. I dealt her another crushing blow. By the way, the third prince has already decided to abandon you. The affection between you two was shallow. It scattered like dust in the wind. In my past life, he only obsessed over you because he thought you were dead. The younger sister seemed to finally grasp it all, alternating between hysterical laughter and sobbing. She staggered toward me, taking a few unsteady steps. Sister, if we could die again and start over, I swear I'd change. With that, she knocked over the candles on the table. Xiao Lu pulled me away. Miss, hurry! The second miss has gone mad. If she wants to die, let her die alone. She won't drag us down with her. Indeed. Why should she drag me into this again? I left the room. Looking back, it was already engulfed in flames. My half-sister stood within the firelight, her expression frenzied. Once more. Next time, I won't make a mistake. A great fire consumed the prince's mansion. My younger sister's remains were never found. The third prince showed little emotion. Only months had passed. Yet the vows he'd sworn to her seemed never spoken. He came to see me first. Mu Yao, your second sister is gone. Now, there's no barrier between us. From this day forward, let us live well together. I was so enraged I laughed. No, there never was any you and I. The third prince's expression turned slightly cold. Mu Yao, I need my father-in-law's support now. Even if you wish to divorce. At this critical juncture, you cannot completely sever ties with me. If the prince's mansion faces trouble, the general's mansion will be implicated too. He was threatening me. Once the vice minister of works fell, the emperor grew deeply disappointed in this son. By now, the crown prince must have presented all the evidence. The third prince would never recover. I stared at him coldly. Is that so? My father spent his life in military service, loyal to the court and the people. I trust a wise ruler would never wrong the faithful. Your Highness. No further words are needed. The third prince advanced toward me step by step. He seized my shoulder. Mu Yao, you're so naive. You are already my wife. The general's residence and I are in the same boat. Do you think you can leave just because we haven't consummated our marriage? Then tonight, we shall formally consummate it. The third prince's face drew close, his expression even tinged with smug satisfaction. My stomach churned with nausea. The next moment, I executed a shoulder throw on the third prince. Gasping in pain, he scrambled to his feet, staring at me in disarray. Chu Muyao, you know martial arts? I laughed. You fool! How could you possibly know? From the very beginning, you didn't even recognize me as the legitimate daughter of the general's household. You couldn't even discern Chu Mian's lies. What else could you possibly know? When the crown prince stormed the prince's residence with the imperial guard, the third prince was locked in a standoff with me. The crown prince came to rescue me personally. but I raised my hand to stop him. Your Highness. Please wait. I have a score to settle with this scoundrel first. With that, before the Crown Prince and the Imperial Guard, I unleashed a brutal beating on the third prince. I did not take his life outright. Killing him outright would have been too easy for him. I merely broke several of his ribs, shattered his legs, and destroyed his third leg in the process. Everyone stood speechless. The Crown Prince unconsciously rubbed the back of his head, clearing his throat. Ahem. Miss Chu, I must still have the third prince taken to the imperial prison. Please show mercy and spare his life. The Crown Prince arrested the third prince on the spot, citing evidence of collusion with the Prince of Jinnan's estate, illegal arms procurement, embezzlement, bribery, and ordered his estate confiscated. Even now, the third prince clutched my skirt in a delusional plea. Chu Muyao, if you don't save me, the general's mansion won't escape destruction. Remember, our families are bound by marriage. I looked down at him with contemptuous laughter. But I submitted all that evidence myself. The third prince's eyes widened with shock, then filled with raging fury. I treated you well. Why betray me? Because the one I initially intended to marry wasn't you? You vile woman. I couldn't be bothered to respond, kicking him aside with my foot. Incidentally, I addressed the Crown Prince, Your Highness. After the case is concluded, this man is to be handed over to me for disposal. This was our prior agreement. The Crown Prince nodded in consent. That very night, I returned to the general's residence with my dowry and explained everything. Mother was still shaken, but thankfully, Mu Yao had escaped. Father was furious. The third prince had wolfish ambitions. He deserved this fate. I said, Father, His Majesty has long harbored suspicion toward the Prince of Jinnan. This incident will likely be the final straw that breaks the camel's back. I implore you to volunteer to lead the campaign against the Prince of Jinnan. Only then can our Chu family completely sever all ties. The calamity brought upon by my half-sister triggered a chain of events. From the very beginning, she intended to make the general's mansion bury her concubine alongside her. Everything unfolded as I predicted. The emperor swiftly determined the third prince's guilt. Seizing this opportunity, the emperor turned his wrath upon the Prince of Jinnan. Father volunteered immediately, leading troops to suppress the rebels. The third prince was sentenced to death. The Crown Prince exchanged him for a condemned prisoner, then personally brought the third prince bound before me. The Crown Prince inquired, I am curious. Miss Chu, how do you intend to deal with him? I led the Crown Prince to the arena. The third prince appeared disheveled and filthy, his face contorted with terror. As if realizing something, he gasped. No, it shouldn't be like this. He suddenly fixed his gaze on me. Chu Muyao. Chu Muyao. You can't do this to me. Give me one more chance. I swear I won't betray you. With a light wave of my hand, attendants pushed the third prince into the beast pit. 3 tigers, starved for a day, bared their fangs and pounced on him simultaneously. The third prince's eyes fixed straight on me. I curved my crimson lips into a satisfied smile. The Crown Prince paled slightly. I had intended for Miss Chu to enter the Eastern Palace. I asked, Has Your Highness changed your mind? The Crown Prince choked, seeming somewhat afraid of me. What are Miss Chu's future plans? His question was direct, and mine was even more so. The Emperor has 7 other sons. Your Highness still faces fierce competition. I will lend Your Highness a helping hand, and Your Highness will grant me the merit of accompanying the dragon. What do you think, Your Highness? The Crown Prince smiled. If Miss Chu were a man, I countered. Why can't a woman achieve great deeds? My father has only me as his daughter. The military authority of the general's mansion must fall to me. I've said it before, a steadfast bond of sovereign and subject will be forged between us. The crown prince seemed to relax, smiling. Sovereign and subject. Very well. Half a year later, father seized the Prince of Jinan's estate. Using his military achievements, he petitioned for an imperial decree, securing the title of crown prince for me. I became the first female crown prince in our dynasty's history. 2 more years passed, and the crown prince ascended the throne. I awaited my first military campaign. The new emperor personally saw me off. Chu Muyao, I await your return. I command you to live well. Ha! Needless to say, I would live well enough without his command. A new journey officially began. Side story. 10 years later, I had my own daughter. The emperor summoned me. Seeing my daughter had inherited my features, a hint of jealousy flickered in his eyes. Who is this child's father? I've never heard you speak of marriage. I shrugged. I cannot say for certain, but it matters little. I am her mother, and that is enough. The emperor choked, dismissed the attendants, and asked me, Chu Muyao, in your heart. I cut him off. Your Majesty has always been an enlightened and mighty ruler in my eyes. His expression darkened slightly as he tapped his fingertips on the tabletop. A dubious idea surfaced. I have 3 imperial princes now. How about we arrange a betrothal between them and you? After a moment's thought, I declined. Your Majesty, matters of marriage depend on fate. They cannot be forced. Emperor, you, Chu Muyao, you're trying to drive me to my grave. Arrange a betrothal? Humph. I'd never want my daughter to put all her eggs in one basket. The end.